Hello, friends. Welcome to the Grow Podcast. I'm Wendy Jo, and this is my co-host, Miss Ashley.
Hey, Wendy, how are you?
I am doing great. We are recording here on a nice Friday morning in the middle of a heat wave.
Oh, wow. You guys are having a heat wave. We're getting fall-like weather here.
Oh, yeah. I see you're in a sweatshirt. And I'm like, whoa. Although we are inside recording.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my office is generally pretty cold, so I'm almost always recording with a sweatshirt on.
Well, I feel like a lot of the country is just a little bit too warm, and
Yeah.
Arkansas is no different. But I think it's going to break. I think this weekend we're going to get a little reprieve, so that'll be nice.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was pretty much melting yesterday. I was standing outside talking to someone melting.
Literally. Body part by body part, right?
So we have an interesting topic this week. We're talking about Oracle.
Yeah, when you presented the idea, I was so intrigued. I was like, am I an oracle or a healer or like neither? Like,
Well, it's been kind of interesting. So someone called me an Oracle recently, and I've never been called that before. I've heard the word before, but I hadn't really thought about it. And then I started looking it up, and lots of people sort of say you're either a healer or an oracle, but I don't know if that really resonates with me.
Okay, that's interesting. Why not?
Well, I don't think you have to be one or the other. And I think, so an oracle, there's sort of this connotation of a person who is kind of removed and above other people with like this wisdom that they have, that they, like I picture someone like sitting on a throne being fanned while they spout out the wisdom, and I don't know that that's always the case. I think sometimes the wisdom comes in very, at the kitchen table, right? In very humble spaces. And I think if you have wisdom, you can use it for healing purposes. So I'm a little confused about all that. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, for sure. So the way because I just looked it up, I never really played with the concept in context of anybody else outside of us today. And so with the oracle, what I understood was that usually that person is able to so when I heard oracle, I actually thought of that movie. What's the movie? Can't think. With Keanu Reeves.
Yes. It's one of my favorite movies, and of course the name is going to escape me.
I know, I can't remember, but anyway, it made me think of that, where they just spit out the wisdom with no consideration of the physical realm, right? So like that's kind of how I interpreted that. So like if skies are blue and grass is green is the wisdom that I'm offering. No, that's not a good example. But anyway, if I'm offering some sort of wisdom, like divine universal wisdom, and the person isn't able to hear it or receive it or isn't in the emotional capacity to accept it, the oracle wouldn't consider that. They would just share it and then move on. Right. Almost like a machine. That's how I interpreted that. And then like with the healer, I feel like the healing capacity is considering all of the things, the emotional state, the knowledge level, how do I interpret this? So, can you understand it? Well, do I have to make it so, use different words or different language, or if your culture is different or all those kind of things? I think the healer would go through all of those things to help support the healing journey of that person based on where they are in that moment.
That's very interesting take. I can see that for sure. So the movie is The Matrix.
Yes. Oh, man.
One of my favorites. I didn't care for the sequels as much as the original.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But there was an oracle that they were trying to get to in the film.
Yes.
So that she could give them the wisdom they needed. right?
Yeah, yeah. So she would come and she would just say these random things, and you're like, "What are you talking about?" Like it didn't make sense. And for me, I don't think I appreciated the sequels because maybe I'm just not there in my thought process. Like that's kind of how I like I was like, maybe it's just me, because there were moments that just to me didn't make sense. And the Oracle to me in that movie, she was just saying these things and those things didn't make sense, but they were doing something in response to the things. And I'm like, what is going on here?
Right. Right. Does the oracle have to make sense, or are they just channeling what they get,
Right.
better or worse? I loved your interpretation. I think that that's spot on, really. You know, a healer, to be a healer, you, or at least one that's effective, you really have to look at the whole person and consider their ability to take in the information. How much do you have to detail do you have to give? Is there a context, you know, culturally? Yeah, all that stuff that you mentioned. And a healer definitely is looking at that. The oracle is giving information. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I know there are some times where I'm interpreting like messages from spirit. And I know when I deliver them, the recipient can't understand. I've had people say that to me. They're like, what are you talking about? I don't know. That's for you. Like, I really just don't know. In those moments, that's just me interpreting. It's not me offering the healing necessarily, because after that, then we would kind of explore where you are and what's going on and why am I tired, and so I think that is two separate things, because in order to create boundaries too, if I'm interpreting, this is what I'm doing. I'm interpreting this message and I'm relaying it to you, and that's the end of our relationship right now. Or am I interpreting and relaying, and then we are exploring, right? And so I feel like those are just two separate roles.
Mhm. Very interesting. Well, we're going to talk about this more when we come back.
Have you even thought about this before? Because I know I haven't. When I looked up the word oracle, I immediately had a thought of the Matrix. And I passed judgment on the idea of an oracle, to be honest with you, because it almost seemed as if oracles were cold-hearted or something like that. But I honestly feel like many healers serve as oracles. They receive messages and they share them with the world. And no, they may not consider your feelings, but is it time to consider your feelings when you're receiving divine messages? I believe everyone is a healer. The question really is, are you intended to heal other people? I mean, think about it. If you have a wound, your skin will heal itself naturally. You don't have to do anything. So therefore, you're a healer. I believe everyone is a healer, but not everyone is intended to be an oracle. I would love to know what you think.
And we're back. Today we're talking about oracle versus healer, or what is an oracle, what is a healer? Is there some crossover there? And Ashley, you were talking about when you're working with people and how you're viewing that. And I think it's very wise. You know, you have to kind of know what the boundary is. Am I just delivering information and the person can take it or leave it? Mm-hmm. Do with it what they will? Or am I going to explore this information with the person with my continued wisdom and tools for healing and expand on it? You know, I think that's really important. And I think sometimes people really just need the message, you know? I had a friend who was doing some healing work with people, and he actually would take his pendulum and ask, like he'd give information, and then he would ask, is this a report or is this information we're supposed to do something with? Mm-hmm. Like he would actually ask. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, you know, yeah, because some messages are just a report, right?
Right, for sure. And I think, I think it's up to, because we're all humans, right? So we all have the capacity for empathy and understanding that maybe this person can't understand, or maybe they do understand, or maybe it was in the exact right moment, right? So doing that assessment to just see where the communication may be doing the communication thing, or is it lacking, requires a tad bit of empathy. But who knows? I mean, and I also think that certain people serve certain purposes, and maybe there are people who are just intended to just deliver messages.
Right. I talk a lot about the healers that originally I met with that really changed my whole life and helped me to understand myself, past trauma, and gifts, right? Mm-hmm. So it was a couple, and the man, his name was George, he's passed away, they both passed away, often would put people off because he was mostly just delivering messages, and people don't always want to hear those messages. But he wrote a book that was all channeled, and it's very thought-provoking book that will help you to grow spiritually. It's called The Light in Your Life is Spirit. But many of the writings, which he said he channeled directly from spirit, would put people off. It's hard to look at yourself. It's hard to realize the parts that need healing or work. And for some people, it's equally as hard to hear the good things, right?
Yeah.
But he did that part, and his wife was very compassionate, loving, delivering similar message, but in a very compassionate way. She's a healer through and through, and used herbal remedies and various tools to help people to grow and understand themselves and any abuse they suffered. So they worked pretty well together. People sort of saw him as a crotchety old man, but he was the channel.
Yeah.
And she channeled too, but it was just very different. Maybe, I guess I see in them that contrast of oracle and healer.
And you know what, to be honest with you, I feel like they're just words or concepts, or, if you're serving in your divine purpose, then, serve that way. And so maybe he had a stronger sense of channeling and was able to bring messages more free flowing. And that's where the effort lies. And maybe that's why they're partnered together to begin with, because she softened up the message in order for people to receive it. And so does that make one bad or good or whatever? No, it doesn't. And not everybody is intended to be a healer. Not in everybody. I mean, we all heal, right, but we're not all intended to heal others. And we're not all intended to be an oracle for others, although we do have all of us have the ability to tap into spirit and channel messages the way that we do.
Right. And the more you clear your channel and heal, the more you'll get. The louder the impression or the voices, the more your gifts come out, I believe.
Yeah, I agree.
But I also think that an oracle has a sense of confidence in what they are doing and saying and how they feel about what they're saying. And I do get that quality from you. I know that you're a healer. I feel that as well. So I can't agree with most of the articles I read said most people are one or the other. Yeah. I don't know if there's a most people, maybe, but I do think to be an oracle, there has to be some sort of confidence in what you know and what you hear or feel that you're delivering. You just, that it's what the truth is.
Yeah. And I don't know about nobody else, but it takes a lot to get there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of tears, a lot of peeling back that onion of yourself to get to there.
Yeah.
And, many people don't see that process and may wonder why you feel that confidence. I think the confidence comes from all that work.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, it just feels like, for me at least, it just feels like, you know what? I've been through way worse stuff. Me saying what I know to be true cannot be the worst of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know if this is true for oracles. Maybe it may be, maybe not. I don't know. There's also, just because you feel like you know this message is important and you want to bring it forward, not you, one, people,
Yeah.
you, me, everyone. Right? If you have that, you want to bring it forward. And you may even want to instigate that thought in people in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like part of that is knowing yourself and knowing like your purpose, because sometimes I may know things, but is it my job to deliver it is always the thing that, not always, but more recently is the thing that I'm starting to realize. I don't have to deliver every message that I'm aware of. I don't have to share every knowing that I know. I
Mhm.
can keep it to myself and be aware and allow people to go through whatever journey they're supposed to go through. Yeah, so I just feel like part of it is just knowing where you are in the context of your reality, like just pacing you up against the reality that you're in, so that way you make, decisions that don't turn people away.
Right. That's sort of a balancing act
Yeah, it
in
is.
a way.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started, when my gifts really started popping out, um, I would shake someone's hand and see every crappy thing that ever happened to them, like just touching their hand.
Yeah.
And it was heartbreaking, actually. And I
Yeah.
knew that I couldn't do anything. Like, I mean, I could be like at a restaurant or just anywhere. And so I asked Spirit to stop doing that. I
Yeah.
only, I sometimes I feel they sort of test you to see what you can see and feel. And
Mm-hmm.
so I said, I see it, I understand. Please only give it to me when the person is looking for help from me.
Mm.
Then it's important, But I think finding that discernment is really part of your spiritual growth.
Yeah, I agree with that. And going back to the onion analogy, like it is about peeling back the layers. Like you may be aware of a gift. How do you use the gift? And then do you use the gift in certain situations? That is all like a long-term journey to figure that out. Certain situations may be appropriate, certain situations may not be appropriate. Um, you know,
Right,
it, life journey.
right, right, right. And um, why are you receiving this information? Is it
Hmm.
to impart it to that person, or is it something you need to learn about? So yeah, I mean, as you grow, you realize, there are various reasons for obtaining this information.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I don't know. Like, I don't know how many people out here actually do identify as an oracle. I know I would not. I would not even consider that as something that as part of my identity, but I would love to know what other people who do identify in that capacity, like what they feel about that.
hmm Yeah, if you're listening or watching, let us know. Because when the person called me an oracle, it really kind of put me off a little bit. Like I didn't
Mm,
really think of myself in that way, using that word. But as I've thought about it since she said it to me, I do think that I am an oracle and a healer. I
okay.
can't say that it's separate for me, but I receive messages that are pretty strong about all kinds of things, and
Mm,
with some discernment, we'll share them.
yeah.
And I feel so confident in what I'm saying. Like, I've had, more skeptical people say, well, how do you know that? I said,
Yeah.
well, that's what I was told.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love those moments. Like,
Right.
how do you know that stuff? Huh, just know.
Mhm. Right. Right. And you just know. And I think that is part of being an oracle, but it also is part of being a healer. So I think there's more crossover than people want to say,
Yeah, I
personally.
agree.
But if you are more familiar with these terms and have other ideas about it, we'd love to hear about that.
For sure. For sure. This was a great conversation.
Yes, and we will be right back. Well, today we're talking about oracle versus healer. I'm not sure that the two words are really adversarial in any way or even that different, really. But many people who do healing work are also an oracle. They're channeling, receiving information from spirit and delivering it to a person. If you're a healer, you might tend to soften the blow and deliver it in a way that the person can receive it. Whereas if you lean more towards being an oracle, you may just state the message. Some people, I think, are truly here as part of their purpose to be an oracle, to just deliver information, and boom, they do so and they're out. And I think that when you are an oracle completely, if that's your purpose, you will be aware of that as well. Hey there, Wendy Jo, co-host of the Grow podcast. Also, Wendy Edge, occupational therapist. And I wanted to tell you about my new business where I'm combining the principles of occupational therapy, coaching, and spirituality, and wellness, of course. On the website, you'll see that I'm doing Osho Zen card readings, spiritual coaching, spirit paintings, and so much more. So if you want, check it out, edgecoachingandconsulting.com.
Have you heard of the Cannabis Nursing School? It's a place where cannabis nursing, entrepreneurship, and spirituality meet. The High Align Tribe is waiting for you, and it's so easy to find. CannabisNursingSchool.com.
And we're back. So this has been really thought-provoking.
For sure.
Yeah. There's something about that word oracle that has just weird connotations around it. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, it gives, I mean, because you kind of mentioned it in the beginning where it's almost as if like there's this snootiness about it, or like they don't care about people, or I don't know, like, and I don't, and maybe you're right, like maybe I'm having a hard time removing my pre-programmed bias from the word oracle. And so I know before I was like, yeah, I don't identify as an oracle, and I still don't, even as we're talking about it, I don't feel like I do. I much rather identify as a healer. I feel like that's like I feel stronger about that aspect. Like even if I didn't receive messages or couldn't work with energy and translate it, I would be okay with just being able to offer advice and being an advisor, right? That just feels good when I say that. It just kind of rolls off the tongue. But I do know, similar to like cannabis and, you know, race and things like that, it kind of feels mucky, and it's not our fault that it feels mucky. It's media's fault, or politics' fault, or, you know, society's fault. So I don't know.
You just don't want people like, you know, fighting and rushing across the universe to get a message from you.
Right, no, please
like
don't.
in the Matrix. Right.
No, we don't need that.
Yeah, it is interesting. Words have power, you know, and it could be a beautiful word to some people, you know. But I think this is, as I said, I think it's really thought-provoking. And if you're a healer, maybe consider if you're also an oracle and what that means to you. And that's, I think, the most important part.
For sure. I think leaning into things that create some sort of response emotionally, I think is worth leaning into. So that is a good point. If you do identify as a healer, I think at what capacity are you that healer, and how do you intuitively move through your practice?
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, have a great week, everyone. Bye.